Good day everyone. So for today, we will be discussing a new lesson for English 300 subject, and that would be all about film reviews. When we say film review or film critic, it is our way of giving our judgment on a certain film, giving our interpretation, and giving our reaction in a formal way or in a formal manner. Now, let us have a closer look on the field of film review. So when we are writing a film review or film critic, we have to write the synopsis of the movie or the story. When we say synopsis, that is a brief summary of the story, in which it will inform the readers of what the story is all about. But if you are writing the synopsis, you should not include the ending, because this will rob your readers' excitement. Keep in mind that people are into trailer, not to spoiler. Remember that those who read a movie review are mostly those who have not seen the film and are trying to decide whether they're going to watch it or not. So after writing your synopsis as an author, you have to follow it with your impression of the film, whether you like it or not, and what are the things that makes you like it. And the last part should involve your criticisms or your critics, your feedback. Would you recommend it or not? Now we will be focusing on the aspects that are mostly considered when we are doing a film review or film critic. So first thing, we have to look at the plot of the story. When we say plot, that refers to the flow of the events. So you have to ask yourself, is the sequence of events logical or entertaining? Are the twists and turns of the story effective or not? And what storytelling techniques were used in the film? Now, for you to clearly understand what do we mean by plot, here is the plot diagram or the parts of the plot diagram. We have the first one is the exposition or the introduction. So when we say introduction or exposition, that is the first part of your plot or of your story in which you are introducing the characters and you are trying to characterize them. What are their roles? Next to introduction or exposition is the rising action. When we say rising action, that is where conflict arises. That is when the protagonists discover the conflict that is about to rise. Third is the climax. That is the highest point of the story. That is what we are really looking forward. Fourth is the falling action. This is where the conflicts are being resolved or the protagonist is now trying to solve all the problems that had arisen on the film or on the story. And lastly is the denouement or the resolution. Denouement or the resolution is the end part of the story. So this is what a plot diagram looks like. You have to remember this one. So in here, we will be starting with the exposition. We have to rise it up like a mountain, and that's rising action. The highest point or the peak of the mountain is the climax. And then it would fall down the other side of the mountain, and that's falling action, where the problems and conflicts are resolved, and the resolution, which is the end of the story. In a story, conflicts makes it fun and makes it more interesting. And we have different types of conflict. The first one is man versus himself. When we say man versus himself, that is a conflict which occurs between man and his conscience. In most cases, we often see movies wherein the protagonist or the character is debating on himself whether to do something or not to do it. Next is man versus man. It is a kind of conflict between two persons or a group of people. So if the protagonist and the antagonist would fight into each other, that's man versus man. Next, we have man versus nature. From the term nature, it is a conflict between man and the natural disasters or phenomena. The movies 2012, Earthquake, and Sharks are examples of man versus nature. Next, we have man versus society. This is a type of conflict between a man and societal rules and discriminations. The movie Insurgent, Divergent are just examples of the man versus society type of conflict, wherein they are fighting against the society's rules and discriminations from the society. Next, we have man versus technology, in which this conflict arises between the protagonist and the machines. Example for this type of conflict are the movies Modern Times, Christine, The Lives of Others, Alphaville, The Terminator, and The Decoder. And there are a lot more movies which has this kind of conflict as well. Lastly, we have the man versus fate or the supernatural. This conflict occurs when the protagonist finds himself or herself against a vengeful god or powerful supernatural force. So for this, we have the movies Exodus, Immortals, Gods of Egypt, and Along with the Gods. After checking the conflict, we can also check or look at the acting skills of the characters, whether the actors and actresses are really in character, or they have portrayed their character well or effectively. Are their acting compelling, or is it effective or not? Is it believable or not? Or do they project their voices well? Because there are some characters which are not suited for a certain character that they are portraying or that they are playing. Next, we also need to check the cinematography. Telling a story isn't just actually about recording the action, but it is about how the images are captured. So we have to check the lighting, the framing, the composition, the camera angles, the film selection, the lens choices, the zoom, the focus, the color, the exposure, and the filtration used in the movie, whether they are appropriate on the scene or not. Next, we also need to consider the music or the song used in the film or the movie. Does it contribute to the beauty of the story or not? Does it have something to do with the scene or not? We also need to check the special effects used in the movie or the film. Are they appropriate or are they... Next, we also need to observe the editing. Are these scenes logically arranged? Or maybe it adds confusion to the audience, or it gives them the clue. Or you have to identify if there are unnecessary scenes that were added or that were included in the movie. Lastly, we have to check the script. Are the lines appropriate or not? Are they cliché? Are they original or attention-grabbing to the audience? Because most of the time, what lives in the heart of the audience are the lines stated by the actor. So that's how you do movie critiquing. You have to be mindful of those things. Again, you have to start with a synopsis, followed by the impact or your impression of the movie, and then your critique. So your critique involves those that we have mentioned above. That would be all for today. Thank you so much and see you all next week.